people would travel from all over. Here's the problem with Laodicea, though, is Laodicea is located in the valley, in between these two mountain regions. And so you had the hot water from Hierapolis that would flow down into the city. You would also have the cold water from Colossae that would flow down to the city. And so what you ended up with in Laodicea was a bunch of lukewarm water that you couldn't drink. It had a sulfuric smell to it as well. Like that egg smell. It was not appeasing. It was not appealing. Nobody wanted to drink the water in Laodicea. And so for Jesus to use that language, it wasn't just he wanted to come up with some interesting phrase that we would all be able to remember in our minds, but it's because Laodicea would truly understand the nastiness and the disgust of lukewarm water. And so Jesus is pointing out to Laodicea, you're no different than your own water supply. Your water's not useful for you. And you're not useful for me in your current state. And so understanding that, number two, we realize that we can be successful without being useful. Here's where it starts to hit home a little bit because, let's be honest, we all pursue success, right? We all want to be successful in what we do. We all want to do good things. Whatever it is that we are doing with our life, we want to be successful in it. Whether it's our family, raising our kids, whether it's the job that we have, whether it's a ministry that we're serving in, whatever the case is, we want to be successful. But success doesn't always mean usefulness. This church in Laodicea was successful. This city of Laodicea was successful. But success doesn't always equal usefulness. I think about my own life, and I'm kind of, I'm a little OCD on some things. I love making lists of things that I need to accomplish in a day. In fact, it's part of my morning routine. When I get up in the morning, one of the things I do each and every day is I make a list of what I want to accomplish for that day. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction, and it makes me feel good about myself when I can put a little check mark beside each thing. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit of my schedule throughout the week so you understand really how routine it becomes for me. So I spend, the better part of the morning in the office here, and so on Tuesdays I focus on youth group stuff. I focus on texting teens that I just feel like I need to encourage. I work on the lessons I need to do. I work on all of those things on Tuesday, and that's what I focus on. And I have a checklist and things that I have to accomplish in that day, and I check that off. And then on Wednesday I focus on our college students and encouraging them and making videos for them on Wednesday, and I send out a daily devotional for them each day, and so I work on those on Wednesday as well. And then on Thursday is kind of my outreach day. I like to just go out into town and walk around and meet people and talk to people, and whether that's at Starbucks or one positive to COVID is I couldn't go in Starbucks anymore, and so I just had to start walking around and meeting people and talking to people in other areas. And so that's kind of what I focus on. Then Fridays I'm kind of wrapping up sermon stuff. And so that's kind of how my mornings and sometimes even into the afternoon goes, depending on the day. But there's a checklist for each day, and I like to check all of these things off. And on the days when I know that I can't accomplish all those tasks, my whole mood changes. Right? I don't feel successful. I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. Even if I look at this list and there's one thing that I didn't get to check off the list, it was a failure for me that day. And so the list goes beyond just my ministry. It goes into family stuff as well. And it's I probably need some help when it comes to my list, but hey, it's who I am. So I say that to say this: as we've went through this series, And really, as I began to focus in on this letter, I feel like God began to speak to me in this way. How often have you been successful in your day and yet you weren't useful for me? And I think back to so many days where I did ministry. I did what I felt like I was supposed to do that day, but I wasn't really connected to Jesus. And I wasn't really listening to what He wanted me to do that day. I knew what I wanted to do and what I felt like I needed to do. But there were a lot of days where I never asked Him, hey, what do you want me to do today? And so even in my own personal life, I can see where it can be so easy to allow our pursuit of success in fulfilling certain tasks and missions can get in the way of our usefulness for God. And I'm afraid that there's been many days where I did not hear His voice because I was too concerned about my own. And I was too concerned about my own tasks. So we can be successful without being useful. But number 3, and this was a difficult one for me, but just stick with me. It's possible to do church and leave Jesus out. Look back at the letter. Jesus says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me." It's possible to do church and leave Jesus out. I have a question for you. Have there not been some weeks, whether it was a difficult week, whether it was a late night, whether the mood is different, whether situations that's going on in your life where you didn't really want to be here? You didn't really want to come and be in the presence of God. You didn't really want to worship, but you knew you were supposed to. So you showed up. I think we've all been in situations before where we've showed up and we went through the motions, but we left Jesus at the door. And we found success in that because we were able to check the boxes. Maybe we even sang. Maybe we gave some money. Maybe we worshiped. Maybe we put a smile on and shook other people's hands. Maybe we even taught a Sunday school lesson to kids or teens. Maybe you got up on stage and preached a sermon, but your heart wasn't in it. It's possible to do church and leave Jesus out. I think about this imagery of this church in Laodicea. Maybe they were meeting for Bible studies in the homes, and they were worshiping together, and they were doing all of these things that they knew they were supposed to do, but on occasion they kept the door locked and didn't let Jesus in. I read a preacher ask this question one time, and it kind of hurts, but it's a good question to ask. If you removed the Holy Spirit from your worship service, would you be able to tell a difference? We get comfortable. And we get set in routine. And it becomes so much more about the tasks at hand. It becomes so much more about the do's and the don'ts and the things that we're supposed to do that we fail to realize that we didn't even open the door and let Jesus in. And so we can go through a whole worship service and not be impacted. And then we walk out and say, I didn't really get anything out of that. possible to do church and leave Jesus out. Which leads to number 4. We can go through the motions, or we can go on mission. We're at the end of this series. It took us 8 weeks. We went through 40 days of fasting and praying as a church. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. Some days were more difficult than others, but we made it. And I hope that you were able to see God in it, and I hope that you were able to see God through it, and I hope that Jesus was able to reveal himself to you a little bit more. But one thing that we've learned from all these letters is that Jesus had a process. And I think that as we come to the end of this series, we have a choice to make today as to whether, as a church and as an individual, we want to continue to just go through the motions, or we want to be a people and a person that is on mission for Jesus. Some of us need to allow Jesus to acknowledge our good, as he did in these letters. We do good stuff.